What can rocks from the past tell us about the world today?
Why are we so resistant to change, and what can we do to challenge the status quo?
And how do invasive species threaten nature and our way of life?
We'll be looking into all this and more on 10 Things to Know About.
This week, we're looking into some of the invasive species that threaten our biodiversity and checking out the latest monitoring technologies aimed at keeping them out. Invasive species can be found anywhere, but one pest in particular has been a cause of great concern for experts lately. A single Asian hornet was first spotted in Ireland back in 2021, but earlier this year, a fully developed nest was found in Cork City, with a second nest being found a couple of weeks later. So just what are these dangerous invaders that we've been hearing about so much lately, and what can be done to curb their threat? Aidan O'Hanlon was part of the task force, led by the National Parks and Wildlife Service, that investigated the Asian hornets that were found in Cork.
As the name suggests, it's native to Asia, so it lives in China, Vietnam, parts of India. We know that they can spread very fast when they're introduced beyond their native range. So this species, for example, was introduced into France about 20 years ago, and it has spread like wildfire around Europe ever since. It's now got a foothold in southern England, and we've had 2 nests in Ireland this summer.
Why are we worried about them being here?
They're predators of other insects, so imagine them in the insect food chain. They're kind of bigger than our other wasps, so no other insects are going to eat them. And they feed other insects to their young, so they could have damaging effects on our pollinator populations.
Asian hornets are a significant threat to Ireland's honeybees. A single hornet can kill and eat up to 50 honeybees a day, and each nest can house around 6,000 hornets. So studying the nest discovered in Cork is an important step in understanding and tackling their establishment in the future. This is bits of that we're seeing here in front of us.
This is a section of one of them, yeah. So this nest was taken from Cove. So it's a small enough nest. This one has been dissected out to study the nest demographics and population size, and to take samples for future DNA work as well. As far as wasp nests go, you can actually identify the nest. They have a different architecture. So our native wasps have this kind of like, they have these straight lines of carton that they build around it, and they're grey. Thankfully, Asian hornet nests are sort of this orangey, browny, yellow colour. Like most insects, they go through a complete metamorphosis. So they start off life as an egg, and then they spin a cocoon. So that's what these silk caps are, yeah. And I can actually, I'll open one up here to show you underneath. You can see there's a larva underneath it.
Oh, yeah.
It'll spend a few weeks in there, and then it will pupate. So it'll start to grow its legs and its antennae and its kind of more recognizable insect head. Mm-hmm. The workers are female. They're more valuable because they're the ones that help propagate the nest and feed new workers and tend the eggs and so on. Males are unfertilized, and they're only just used for mating in kind of late summer. Having the larvae will tell us 2 things. It'll just help to have extra specimens for DNA analysis, but also we cut them in time and we'll be able to examine their gut contents and see what species of Irish insect they're being fed. Another trick to help that as well is as the larvae grow, so before they spin these cocoons, their entire gut contents get emptied into the cell. It's called meconium. And a meconium is basically, it's a record of everything they've ever eaten.
Does doing that kind of analysis allow us to see what the potential threat of these insects are to Irish species?
Yes, I expect that the honeybees will feature very strongly in these nests. I was in the field 1 or 2 days, and certainly we saw them carry off a honeybee. So honeybees would come to the bait station, and the hornet would just pick them up and fly off with them. And we saw them attack wasps as well, and green bottle flies.
There were 2 Asian hornet nests found in Cork this summer, and Aidan is about to give me a fascinating and slightly scary insight into the complex structure of the much larger and intact one.
So, this is the big one. This would be a mask situation because it's way more fresh than the other one.
Oh, wow.
It's very cool.
Unbelievably cool.
So it's about 60 centimetres long.
Yeah.
It was hanging from a sycamore tree, so it would have been hanging like this, upside down.
And you can see each different comb.
So this was the first comb that was built, and then they build out and they build down. So the second comb, third comb, fourth comb, fifth, sixth, seventh. And it's in order of age, so these later ones are brand new. They tend to be in older nests, the ones where they produce males and future queens from these newer parts. At the moment, you can see there's nothing in them, just eggs, which tells us that this is a mature colony, but it wasn't yet at the stage that it was producing males and future queens. You can see cocoons, and some of the cocoons you can see there's actually adults ready to emerge.
Terrifying.
There you go. And so this is a female, it's a worker. It's cool, it's like a factory for wasps.
By analysing the nest structure, the insects' eating habits, and their DNA profile, scientists can build a picture of where the hornets came from and what their potential impacts might be. This information can help our agencies plan a strategy for the years ahead and better inform and alert the public on what to be on the lookout for. And so is there anything that we can do to stop species like the Asian hornet from becoming established here?
We can probably never stop them from being introduced. Just the way trade works. I mean, trade isn't going to slow down between Britain and Ireland. There's goods and services and people moving all the time. And these are tiny wasps. They can hitchhike in the back of a car on a pallet of food. A British colleague was telling us that somebody had a cabbage from France in England and they went to cut it open and a hornet crawled out of it. So that they're really good at hiding. The best way to stop them from getting established in Ireland is to detect them early. That's what happened here, and it was really great that we have something like the invasive species alerts with the National Biodiversity Data Centre. It's great that we have a public that are clued in enough to spot that something looks a little bit weird and they can take a photo of it and upload it, and then nerds like me can then help identify it, and the National Parks and Wildlife Service will kick in a response to then track down and find the nest.
One of the biggest problems that invasive species cause is the damage and destruction of crops. And one of the worst offenders across Europe is the stink bug. It doesn't look like much, but don't be fooled. It poses a serious threat to agriculture across the continent.
Thankfully, the stink bug hasn't landed in Ireland yet, and scientists like Michael Gaffney are working hard to keep our crops safe from these smelly invaders.
At the moment, it's estimated that it can attack about 300 different types of plants from about 48 different families. So from an agricultural perspective, you're talking about palm fruit, so your apples and pears. You're talking about saw fruit, raspberries and blueberries. It can attack tomatoes, it can attack potatoes, brassicas. It can also attack a wide range of trees, so things like ash, maple, sorbus, even buddleia. This is a brown marmorated stink bug. Called marmorated because if you notice on the edge of its body, it has little white flecks and brown, so it gives that kind of variegated look.
And they kind of look like a green shield bug that you'd find in your garden, but where does the stink part of it come?
So the stink part comes from scent glands, and when they get disturbed, when they get frightened, they release this scent. They also use the scent to attract other individuals, other stink bugs.
And then if they gather together in your house, then it's a real problem.
Yes, and you disturb them particularly, you can get quite a bad pungent odour, and you then at that stage do have to remove them or preferably have someone else remove them for you.
But the good news is they're not in Ireland yet.
They're not in Ireland yet. Its natural territory is around Japan, Korea and China. In the last 30 years, it has significantly expanded its range, mostly because of its habit of hitchhiking into shipping containers and into vehicles and other forms of transport. Last year in 2024, they did find the juvenile stages, the nymphs, in the wild in Britain. So that would be, again, an indicator that there's the potential that the pest is becoming maybe established in that country, which then has implications, obviously, for Ireland.
To monitor both native and invasive pests, farmers currently use simple sticky traps. They hang them in their fields, then check to see what insects have been caught, before assessing if and how they might need to take action. Michael shows me this example of stink bugs caught on a sticky trap in Italy.
It is a real challenge to monitor effectively. It's time consuming. You need a fair bit of knowledge to identify the traps. Often the traps are, as I say, are even fuller than this, so it can take quite a bit of time to go through it. So we felt that to speed it up, we needed some sort of automated system. Even initially to take pictures, but then as the project developed, we discovered that actually we could use artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually help with the identification of the insects on the trap.
The technological expertise to help identify these troublesome bugs is being developed by a team of researchers at Tyndall National Institute, led by Brendan O'Flynn.
Computers and artificial intelligence are great at some things. One of the things that they're good at is looking at images and seeing very, very small, subtle differences between a wide variety, up to millions of images. And we were able to provide our system that we've developed with that training data set to help them understand what is a brown marmorated stink bug and what isn't.
So how does it work?
So typically this system will be deployed to operate autonomously. It will be battery powered. The solar panel will charge up that battery so it can exist for a long time in a field where there is no mains power. Every dawn and every dusk, this system takes an image of the two sides of this trap. And then the algorithm starts working. It establishes the regions of interest, so it sees blobs on the sticky trap, and it understands that this might be an insect. But then the artificial intelligence kicks in and it looks at those regions of interest and understands which one is actually a brown marmorated stink bug and which is not.
Okay, brilliant.
And that's based on very subtle differences in terms of antenna, colour, carapace shape and size. You can see where each brown marmorated stink bug has been identified correctly as opposed to being some random insect that happens to be stuck onto the glue trap as well.
So you've just developed a little built-in at-home entomologist in this little system.
Effectively, it gives the farmers the capability to make decisions on their farms that previously they would have needed an entomologist to help them.
Yeah. And this is a prototype. You're developing it all the time, and not just teaching the algorithm about what a stink bug looks, but actually working out the best way of it functioning in the field.
Absolutely. It's a big challenge taking technology like we're developing out of the lab and into the real world, because it's the unknown unknowns that you have to encounter then. So we developed a second iteration of this system where we've stripped out the mechanical component in terms of the motor. We've integrated the improved algorithms, but it's a far simpler system to deploy, and it's a far simpler system to maintain. And this is really important from a cost perspective, because the farmers have a very narrow margin to operate in, and reducing the maintenance costs and the maintenance cycle with these sort of systems is really important.
I love the idea that you're trying to make something that's quite, very cutting edge, but like as cheaply and as deployably as possible, as accessible as possible.
Yeah, so we designed this specifically to be simple, but there's a lot of background engineering and science that has gone into the development of this prototype. There's mechanical engineering, 3D printing, electrical engineering, the edge analytics and machine learning, obviously, and the embedded systems programming of the microcontrollers. So it's a very multidisciplinary team that has developed this quality prototype system for deployment.
The hope is the future is that we can develop systems like this that can do multiple insects, that can monitor your aphids, your thrips, your common pests, not just invasive species. Because the trap can run on batteries and can almost run relatively independent, it could be deployed in forests, hard to reach areas. It could potentially be deployed in ports and places like that, places where you may have shipping containers and other things coming in that might have invasive pests on it.
This system shows how technology and AI can play a crucial role in protecting our food systems and biodiversity. I'm glad to say I don't know what a stink bug smells like, and I really hope that we can keep it that way.
Australia is a long way from here, and sometimes home comforts can make all the difference. So thought an English landowner in the 1800s who introduced rabbits for sport, leading to a cascade of unintended consequences. Quickly, the rabbits began to multiply, like, well, rabbits. And a huge rabbit-proof fence was built in a vain attempt to keep them from damaging crops. Fast forward to the 1930s, and many ex-World War I soldiers had moved to Western Australia to farm. But when drought struck, the native emu came for the wheat fields. And being over 6 foot tall, the emus made light work of the rabbit-proof fence. Desperate times called for desperate measures. the former soldiers called in the current army. The Great Emu War had begun. Arriving at a rural outpost, an army unit unpacked machine guns and unloaded on the emus. Now, emus, being master tacticians, do two things: scatter and run really fast. So fleet of foot is this flightless bird that even machine guns mounted on trucks were too slow. And after much mockery of its methods by the opposition in Parliament, the government called it off. The emus, unaware that they were even fighting a battle, had won the war. From the invasive introduction of brazen bunnies to the military misstep of machine gunning a national symbol, the beloved emu population remains stable and in peacetime to this day. See you next time.
It's a long way from the largest lake in the world to the largest lake here on the island of Ireland. But that's the distance that the zebra mussel has travelled to set up home here in Lough Neagh. And this invasive mollusk is creating serious problems for this vital local resource and its ecosystem. I'm on the shores of the loch to meet Caroline Murphy, who carries out research on water pollutants and biohazards. Caroline, can you tell me why Lough Neagh, aside from being very beautiful, is so important?
It's the largest lake in both UK and Ireland. It takes 47% of the water from Northern Ireland. The water flows in from 6 different lakes, and then it's also used as drinking water for 40% of Belfast, so it's hugely important. As well as the natural beauty, there's huge biodiversity here. We've ducks and a lot of migratory birds come and nest in Lough Neagh during the summer. The concern here at Lough Neagh at the moment is the arrival of the invasive zebra mussel. It originally came from the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea, and it has overrun and taken over from the native freshwater mussel here.
Those zebra mussels are the shells that we're seeing all around the place.
Yes.
There's an awful lot of them. Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah, they're much smaller than the native freshwater mussel, but they're everywhere. And it has caused an awful lot of damage. What it has done, it has filtered the water here in Lough Neagh and clarified it so much that the sunlight can penetrate now much deeper down into the water column. This has done two things. It's brought extra sunlight and warmed up the water. And that, in combination with intensive agriculture in the area, climate change, more flooding, has meant that there's been a tipping point for the production of algal blooms, and some of these algal blooms are harmful.
The first recorded appearance of toxic algae in Lough Neagh was back in the 1970s, but the blooms have been a major concern since 2023. We're heading out into the loch to get a better view of the problem. This is incredibly visually striking. I mean, I was not expecting it to be so dense.
Yes, an unprecedented algal bloom. It's so vast and it's stretching across the lake as far as we can see. The important thing about this as well is to note that there can be a few different types of algae. Not all of them are toxic, but it's important for us to be able to detect whether there are some toxic species present.
Okay, and when you say toxic, what makes these algae toxic?
Yeah, they can produce a lot of different toxins. Microcystin, ILR, it's the most toxic and most ubiquitous, so it's most common. It's not known fully what impact the toxins have on the lake, because they don't seem to impact on the fish, but they are very harmful for humans and for pets. It can cause nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, and it's a hepatotoxin, so it targets the liver. So if you were consuming the water over a long time, it would damage your liver.
While the green algae is clearly visible to the eye, it's important to determine whether toxic microcystin is present within the algae. And the team at DCU have developed an antibody-based test that can be carried out on site to detect small amounts of the toxin in the water. To show me how the test works, Caroline collects a series of samples from the lake. She lets the algae settle, filters out any debris, and adds each water sample to a tray with the special antibody. Paul Leonard is part of the research team developing the test.
At current methods, if you want to do this now, we have to take a water sample, put it in a van and bring it to a lab, and it takes days, it's very expensive, requires highly skilled people. So it means that you get very few tests. But if you wanted to monitor continuously over the spring, summer months when these blooms can happen, you want to be able to do multiple testing.
If the toxin is present in the water sample, the antibody reacts and changes the colour. The lighter the colour, the more toxin there is.
As you can see, there's a lot of colour. It looks complicated, but it's actually not. It's actually quite simple. So if you can see here, our colour is very dark and it gets lighter. That's because we have a standard curve. All that means is that we have known concentrations of toxin and allows us to have a curve so we can quantify. Not only do we want to say it's there, we want to know how much is there. And then we have our water samples. And you can see where we have a very dark colour.
Yes.
And that's where there is no toxin in the water.
So this sample here then is quite pale looking.
Yeah.
That's our water sample.
Yes.
There is a bit of toxin in the water then.
There is, definitely.
Yeah.
So that's not great. No, well, it's what we expected.
Well, with the amount of algae that we saw, I'd be surprised if we didn't,
yes,
right?
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So no swimming here today then?
No swimming.
Unfortunately.
Presumably the water that goes to people's houses is treated and is safer, right?
100%. As it goes through water treatment process, no, it's 100% safe.
Perfect. The researchers' next aim is to make the test even more simple and accessible so it can be used by members of the public to test the water in local rivers, lakes and canals.
Something like your COVID test for water. Something that you could buy in the supermarket and you can come here and test the water and make sure that it's free to bathe, free to do water sports or allow your pets in and swim as well. And what we can also see is that since we're here, we want to be able to get that result and have everybody do the test in citizen science. One of the things we can see, if you could detect this with your mobile phone, and we could geotag. So not only can you get the result and know, but we can see the result and go to the local authorities and we can see that there's an algal bloom or there's some toxins in the water being generated. And so it's a quick alert system.
So I suppose the big point here is that it's almost impossible to stop invasive species, but what we can do is come up with ways of working out the impacts that they're having and enable us to respond to that and to change our behaviour or to understand what we need to do in response to that changing environment. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
That's our 10 things to know about invasive species. Next time, we check out the story of carbon and its essential yet highly complex role for all life on Earth.